everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. I am back. I'm sorry I was not able to do any videos yesterday. In fact, I was supposed to have an interview with somebody, and that's going to take place next week, but I had to, oh my gosh, this sickness, and I don't know if it's been COVID. I kind of have reason to believe that maybe it was, just because my whole, like, we got the shot. Okay, that's what we decided to do. We prayed about it. We got the shot. And my family still got sick, but this was like, I can't remember when it was. It must have been earlier this year or late last year. They still got sick. They got COVID. They all got tested for it except for me. And I was like, oh, it's because I got the shot. And then school started, and then one of my kids was like a little bit sick and it spread to another one, but they only had it for like a day. And then I got it, and it's been like one of the worst flus I've ever had. And it's basically, it's a flu. It was a flu. I was sore and having temperature fluctuations in my body, hot and cold flashes and headaches and a really bad sore throat. And it's just been miserable. And so I had to put priority on napping yesterday, and I just, doing work. It's not really good when you're sick. It kind of puts stress on you, and you don't really need stress happening when you're trying to heal. But I'm feeling better today, so I apologize about that. But I just, because I don't even know when the last time was that I missed a day of doing YouTube. And there's people they're like, how do you do it? Well, it turns out that when there's something that you really love and that you're passionate about, and then on top of that you're being paid to do it, it's not that hard to do. It's not that hard to do at all. I love doing this. I would do more if I had more time. So oh, yawn. Ugh. So anyway, Jenica Weeks, not my wife Jenica. This is a different Jenica, a subscriber. She sent me via Instagram a message with a talk by President Benson that talks about he uses a baseball analogy, and he's talking about innings, and I want to share that with you. Before I do, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping here on the channel. So we've had an issue with people not being able to become a member. There's been people that wanted to become members because I started the members only, where I'm still doing the same content for you if you don't become a member, but I'm going to be touching on different topics in the members only, things that I've noticed that people have maybe been a little bit interested in. And so now I'm going to just like talk about those kind of topics. Like I'm going to talk a little bit more about secret combinations, and then toxic relationships as well as like maybe dating type things and stuff like that. So normally what you would do is you'd go on your phone or your desktop, and there's just a join button, but I've heard that people say that it doesn't work. And I started seeing a trend that some people aren't able to do it because they're on a tablet or an iPhone. And I'm assuming that the tablets that aren't working are Apple tablets. So I did some research, and this is what I found. This is on Google's YouTube help page. So this is for iPhone and iPad, and it says, join a participating channel membership on the main YouTube site and app. Purchasing memberships on iOS, which is Apple, is not available on all channels, but we are continuously rolling out this option to more channels. So I guess I'm not one of the lucky channels that this is available for, which is weird, because why can't you just do it for all channels that do it? So I'm sorry for anybody that was not able to because you have Apple, but I guess that's just how it is right now. Maybe that'll change in the future. So if you have another device, in fact, I'm wondering, like, if you have a TV that's not an Apple TV, maybe you could do it there. I'm not sure. So that's the answer. Pretty lame. But I just want to prove to you, I mean, here it is right here. These are all the people that have successfully signed up. So far I have 24 people that are members only. So I just want to show you it is possible. So just switch to a non-Apple device, and then you should be able to do it. Okay, so Jenica Weeks, thank you for sending this to me. This is a talk called "In His Steps," and I think it says it at the bottom. This is a fireside address given at BYU on the 4th of March, 1979. So this is where this comes from. And I actually want to read the whole thing and comment, because I thought it'd be interesting to see what advice he was giving that generation, which that generation would have been mostly, well, I'm not sure if maybe some of them would have been baby boomers. I'm not sure. 1979, because let's look at the generation breakdown. So let's see. Generation breakdown. Hopefully this will, okay, so Generation X was born from according to this, and by the way, there's different like definitions of these generations, so they don't all agree, but they're generally pretty close. So Generation X, born 1965 to 1967. Millennials, no, this is like way off. This one's okay. Let's go with Pew Research. That's probably a little bit more the accepted thing. I want to see years, you guys. I want to see years. Sorry, bear with me for just a minute. Okay, so yeah, here it is. Okay, so silent generation boomers, according to Pew Research, that's 1946 to 1964. And then Generation X is 65 to 80. So yeah, I guess he wasn't talking to he probably wasn't talking to Generation X there, because if you were born in 65, let's see, 10 years later plus 4, that's you would only be 14 years old. So he is mostly talking to boomers in this talk. He's talking to boomers. I technically fall within the millennials, me myself, but I'm like in the early. According to some definitions, I'm Generation X. According to others, I'm millennials, but I'm kind of like on the border between millennials and Generation X when you look at all these different definitions. So why am I bringing this up? Just so we know who he was talking to. Now, I've done a bunch of videos about the different generations, and no, it doesn't matter, whether it's these generations according to what the world calls these generations. Of course, it doesn't really matter, but it kind of does at the same time, because it helps us identify groups. And there was one talk given by President Nelson called True Millennials, where he was using their definition in saying that the millennial generation, they really are the millennial generation. I'm not going to rehash all that. I have this entire playlist called The Rising Generation, where we go over all these different talks in these instances where they're talking to specific age groups, which I think is stunning. Now, before I get too far into it, there's always going to be that person that's like, well, this is all good and great, but no one knows the day or the hour when Christ is going to come, so not even they know, not even Christ himself knows. Well, I've gone over this like a billion times on the channel, but I'll do it again. This is in the Teachings of the Prophet Joseph Smith, as well as the August 2002 Ensign. And I'll let you know that the Ensign is subject to the Correlation Committee, and their job is to make sure that nothing is published in church publications that doesn't jive with doctrine, that goes against doctrine. And this is what Joseph Smith said. Of the Savior's words, that no man knows the day or the hour of the coming of the Son of Man. See Matthew 24:36, which says, But of the day, of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. The prophet asked, quote, Did Christ speak this in a general principle throughout all generations? Oh no, he spoke in the present tense. No man that was then living upon the footstool of God knew the day or the hour. But he did not say that there was no man throughout all generations that should not know the day or the hour. No, for this would be in flat contradiction with other scripture. For the prophet says that God will do nothing, but what he will reveal to unto his servants, the prophets. Consequently, if it is not made known to the prophets, it will not come to pass. And that's referring to Amos 3:7, right? So, yes, I don't know out of all the prophets that we've had in this dispensation if any of them up until now have known. It could be that all of them know. It could be that only the last one will know. Who knows? But I think that the last scenario there, that the last prophet would know, is probably the most likely one. Maybe the ones preceding him, like the 2 or 3 or 4 preceding him, may have they may have kind of a sense that it's happening, but not know exactly. But certainly by the time that we're to the last prophet, I'm sure that he would know. So what I did is I realized that I needed to put together another tracker, another spreadsheet, to put down all these different talks, all these different statements given by general authorities, identifying specific groups. As I was preparing for this video, I pulled up all my old videos so I could get the links down in the description, so I could put together this tracker. So I'm not going to go through all these. I've already done videos about them, but I'll put all these links in the description below in case you want to dive into it. But I took all these, okay, and I know that I probably don't have every single statement that's ever been made that talks about a specific generation, but at the very least I have a pretty good start. So let's start in the year 1820. Let's zoom in to 200%, and let's go up. And what we're looking for, and what I've graphed, is anything that's been said by a general authority where they say this is a generation, or this generation is going to see Christ. They're going to be here for the second coming. They're going to, so on and so forth. So as you can see, not a whole lot in the beginning of this dispensation. We're up to 1935 and still nothing. Let's keep going. Okay, here we go. 1956. Joseph Fielding Smith, while he was president of the Quorum of the 12, says in his book, Doctrines of Salvation, Volume 3, page 457, that he believed that there would be those alive at that time that would see the second coming. Okay, so I put that on there because he's referring to a generation. So only time will tell if that's true. And he did say it was just his belief, but I'm still going to put it down. Okay, then we have Ezra Taft Benson as an apostle, part of the Quorum of the 12. 1979, and I think it's this one right here. I should have put the name of the talk. Whatever, I'll do that later. I think it's this one right here that we're going to go over today. Anyway, 1979, he makes a comment. 1981, he says something. 1983, we have the Vaughn J. Featherstone letter that was put in the Atlanta Temple's time capsule. He was of the 70. I've done a video about that because a lot of people are like holding this as like doctrine, and it was not approved by the church. Not to say that it was disapproved by the church, but the way that the story has been shared is that he had full approval of the church for what he said in the letter, which essentially the time capsule is supposed to be opened, I think, in the year 2033, if I'm not mistaken. And in his letter, he's like, wow, you were here to witness the second coming, and that must have been so incredible for you. And And so a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, if he got the approval of the first presidency and to do that, then that must mean that this letter is accurate. The Interpreter Foundation dug into the story behind this letter, and it wasn't approved by the first presidency or anybody else, but it made its way to the church history library, and so it has the church's like church history library seal on it, but that doesn't mean that it's approved by the church. It's just part of the historical record. But putting that aside, he was a 70, and it was his belief that the second coming would happen by then. So he's talking to that generation, the generation of 2033, which probably most of us are a part, unless you're elderly and you're up there in age. That would include us. Neal A. Maxwell has made some interesting statements about the Vanguard Generation, and I'd have to go back and research it again, but I think the Vanguard is part of a military force that's like the like the first ones into battle, essentially. So he talks about that, and then Ezra Taft Benson, at this point now, he's prophet. He basically says the same things that he said in these other two excuse me, that he said in these other two talks. Only in this one, the talk itself, and this is not a fireside. The other two, these were firesides at BYU. Now he's prophet, and now he's doing an actual article in the Ensign itself. And the name of it is "You Are a Marked Generation." Okay, going up, Neal A. Maxwell again in 1995. All right, and then there's kind of a space here. And then we get to 2016, where we have President Nelson, but at the time he was president of the Quorum of the 12. He gives his talk at a worldwide youth devotional called Becoming True Millennials, where in pretty explicit language he says that the millennials actually are people of the millennium, like they're going to see the millennium. And then a couple years later, he's president of the church. He gives the Hope of Israel worldwide youth devotional, where he again uses a lot of explicit language there, where it's pretty clear what he thinks about the current youth and the role that they're going to play. We had in 2020 General Conference, Sisters in Zion talk by President Henry B. Eyring, second counselor of the first presidency, where he flat out says that the sisters of the church right now and their daughters and their granddaughters are going to be the ones that create the society that is prepared to meet Christ. And then just recently, President Nelson says that we're talking to the youth during a recorded message for FSY. He says that we're in the last half of the ninth inning. Okay, so that's a pretty good segue to this talk that we're going to read by Ezra Taft Benson. So hopefully for that crowd of people that always like to say like, oh, I've been told when I was younger that I was the chosen generation, and then now my kids and my grandkids are being told the same thing. So I guess it doesn't really mean anything. Well, hopefully this tracker, if you're if you're able to process data even just a little bit, you realize that these things haven't really been said until kind of, in a book in 1956. And then it's not until the 70s and 80s that they start like saying it to BYU and in the Ensign to the entire church. So I know that a lot of things have happened since 1979. Like now the internet is here, and we have smartphones, and we're no longer doing disco and things like that. I know that's a lot. It's been a long time, but that doesn't lessen the fact that this generation and your generation, we're told that you're a marked generation. Again, my favorite joke that I always use when people comment like that is like, I don't know, but because I'm not an expert on zombies, but it does look like you're still alive. So the fact that you were told that you would be around for the second coming, I don't know. I think the chances are still pretty good just because you're still living and breathing, and my eyeballs are receiving your message that you left in a comment on my video. So anyway, just hopefully you see that it doesn't look like this kind of talk really started until around this time. Now, I'm certain that I haven't got it all. So feel free to email me. The best way would be to email me if you have like other talks that you're aware of where they've identified a generation or a group of people that they said would be around for the second coming. And by the way, I find it interesting that when we go to the phrase tracker, okay, I've done this right here, the rising generation. This is the number of times that it's shown up in general conference talks. So far this year, it's in 2022, it's been mentioned once in one general conference talk. But if we go back in time, okay, you see that it starts to become just very, just not too frequent. It does pop up from time to time. Rising generation, have a few times in the 40s, a few times in the 50s, a few times in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, a little bit in the 2000s, but starting in 2006. It's mentioned every single year, at least once, but it actually really picks up in speed and frequency starting in that year. So hopefully this will tell you something that, no, it's not something that they just talk about all the time. In the past, yeah, kinda, like here and there, not all too frequent. But now it's just like it's all the talk. And it's clearly something that's on their minds. In addition, let me unhide some of these other, excuse me, these other columns. I'm going to point out again that the times when there's the most second coming talk for second coming words and phrases, the two peaks are the times of highest frequency are always the last like 5 or 6 years, especially during President Nelson's time, and then back in the 70s. Okay, look right here, second coming, and see how it gets all dark right here. And it's across all different, like look right here, prepare the world, it's in the 70s. Across all these different terms, it's pretty much always the same. That's like the general rule of thumb, is that lots of second coming talk during the 70s, like the late 60s and the 70s. And this also happens to be the time, like it's immediately after that. So if you look right here, immediately after they do all this talking about the second coming during the late 60s and the 70s, after that is when you start having all this you are a marked generation talk. Okay, that doesn't start until they're done talking about second coming, and then it starts to become you are the rising generation, you are a marked generation, you're the Vanguard generation, so on and so forth. And then it quiets down for a while, and then during President Nelson's time, it really speeds up with talking about what kind of generation this is. So I don't think that's coincidence. Okay, now to the talk. So this is In His Steps by Ezra Taft Benson, Quorum of the 12 Apostles. My beloved associates, and by the way, it has the video here if you didn't notice. So if you want to go and watch it, I'll put the link for this below. Okay, my beloved associates, members and friends of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Sister Benson and I are honored to be in your midst tonight. I pray that the Spirit of the Lord will be with us and that I might be an instrument in the Lord's hands to bless and edify you. For nearly 6,000 years, God has held you in reserve to make your appearance in the final days before the second coming of the Lord. Every previous gospel dispensation has drifted into apostasy, but ours will not. True, there will be some individuals who will fall away, but the kingdom of God will remain intact to welcome the return of its head, even Jesus Christ. While our generation will be comparable in wickedness to the days of Noah, when the Lord cleansed the earth by flood, there's a major difference this time. It is that God has saved for the final inning. There's the baseball term. And you have to wonder if maybe President Nelson was inspired by this or if there's any connection at all. But anyway, in this, it is that God has saved for the final inning some of his strongest children who will help bear off the kingdom triumphantly. And that is where you come in. For you are the generation, for you are the generation that must be prepared to meet your God. Yes, he's saying this in 1979. And if you were there to hear this and you're listening to this right now, you're still alive. And so that doesn't mean that this isn't true. And that should give a lot of hope, I think, to a lot of the baby boomers. Because, even though there's been, since this time, there's been a lot of focus on the subsequent generations X, Y, Z. And by the way, Generation Y is the same as the millennials. That doesn't lessen what was said to you. Okay, this was at the time an apostle who later became a prophet, and he said this to you. All right. All through the ages, the prophets have looked down through the quarters of time to our day. Billions of deceased and those yet to be born have their eyes on us. Make no mistake about it. You are a marked generation. So look, he's repeating this phrase. He's repeating it. He didn't just say it once, just off the top of his head. This is clearly something that he wants to repeat. This phrase right here. You are a marked generation. There has never been more expected of the faithful in such a short period of time as there is of us. Never before on the face of this earth have the forces of evil and the forces of good been as well organized. And you guys, we know that it's even worse now. It's even more organized. Now is the great day of the devil's power, with the greatest mass murderers of all time living among us. But now is also the great day of the Lord's power, with the greatest number ever of priesthood holders on the earth. And the showdown is fast approaching. Each day, the forces of evil and the forces of good pick up new recruits. Each day, we personally make many decisions that show where our support will go. The final outcome is certain. The forces of righteousness will finally win. What remains to be seen is where each of us personally now and in the future will stand in this fight, and how tall we will stand. Will we be true to our last day's foreordained mission? And that's something that we all, I think, need to realize. The fact that we're here right now, and that you weren't born in the 1700s, 1600s or something like that, is because there's something about you that makes you valuable now. And that's why I think we all really need to look inside of ourselves and look at our talents and the things that we're good at and consecrate those to the Lord. Because if you have tools, the Lord is more than willing to make use of those tools. Sometimes we have to kind of develop them with his help, but if you have the tools, use them. Okay, great battles can make great heroes, but heroes will make great battle. You'll never hear a better opportunity to be a greater hero in a more crucial battle than in the battle you will face today and in the immediate future. Be warned that some of the greatest battles you will face will be fought within the silent chambers of your soul. Yeah. And people right now are falling by the sword in this battle. They're becoming ashamed from the mocking, the pointing and the mocking from the great and spacious building. And so they drop their fruit from the tree of life and then they go toward the building. David's battles in the field against the foe were not as critical as David's battles in the palace against a lustful eye. We will each find our own battlefield. The tactics that the enemy will use against us will vary from time to time. He will feel after our weak spots. We must be alert to the devil's devious designs, to the subtle sins and clever compromises, as well as the obvious offenses. And I feel like right now, we really got to be careful with the clever compromises, how he tries to mesh good with basically worldly philosophies. Like if you're a loving person, if you have empathy, if you're whatever, then you'll accept this. You'll accept this person just how they are. And I want to just be clear, like, of course we should accept people, but that doesn't mean that we have to condone what they're doing or support that thing or advocate for it. But that's the clever compromise. That's the subtlety that a lot of people are falling to, because they hear the laughing and the shouting and they're scared, the laughing and shouting from the great and spacious building, and they're scared because they don't want to become a victim to that mob. And so they're like, well, yeah, Jesus is all about love, so okay, I guess it goes together, and then they go along with it. Okay. Fortunately for us, we have the privilege of fighting under the Lord's banner. While the devil hates us and seeks to make all men miserable like unto himself, the Lord instead loves us and seeks for us the fullness of joy which he possesses. Christ lived on earth and was subject to all manner of temptation, but he won every battle. He is the most successful warrior that ever walked the earth, and he wants to help us win every battle, be it personal or public. When we fall short, his atonement will cover for us on certain conditions. Okay. Actually, I may not want to read this whole thing, but let's see. There is something here I did want to go over, though. Here, then, are the 4 great areas where Jesus grew in personal preparation. Your first 30 years cover the time in your life when most of you will be serving missions, getting your education, dating, getting married, establishing homes, and finding and beginning a career. If we, then, are to follow in his footsteps, we should increase in those same 4 areas in which he increased. In the Doctrine and Covenants, section 93, verse 13, it states that Jesus, quote, received not the fullness at first, but continued from grace to grace. Not from sin to grace, but from grace to grace, until he received a fullness. We too should move from grace to grace in wisdom and stature in favor with God and man. Let us consider these 4 areas. Jesus increased in wisdom. Wisdom could be considered the proper application of true knowledge. Not all knowledge has the same worth, nor all truths equally valuable. The truths upon which our eternal salvation rests are the most crucial truths that we must learn. No man is truly educated unless he knows where he came from, why he is here, and where he can expect to go in the next life. Unless he can adequately answer the question which Jesus posed, what think ye of Christ? The world cannot teach us these things as the kingdom can. Therefore, the most essential knowledge for you to obtain is the saving knowledge within the gospel and the knowledge of its author, even Jesus Christ. I'm going to skip down a little bit. In Doctrine and Covenants, section 88, that's the Second Coming section, verse 118, we are admonished to seek out of the best books of wisdom, quote unquote. Surely these books must first include the scriptures. Next, and alongside them, must be the words of the presidents of the church. So we should be seeing what the presidents of the church say about the scriptures and the current status of the church. In the Doctrine and Covenants, section 21, verse 5, the Lord said, the president of the church, quote, his word shall ye receive as if from mine own mouth. These books make up what has been referred to as the Lord's Library, namely the standard works and the various volumes that contain the words of the different presidents of the church. That's the Lord's Library. Look at that right there. So these books that the prophets write, things like doctrines of salvation, and I think that you could probably include books that are written by the apostles as well, because they are also prophets, seers, and revelators. This is the Lord's Library. These books make up what has been referred to as the Lord's Library, namely the standard works and the various volumes that contain the words of the different presidents of the church. Of the latter volumes, that which would be of greatest importance to you would be the words of the current president of the church, for his words are directed to our day and our needs. And I feel like there's some people that kind of struggle with this concept. They're stuck in 1885, or they're stuck in 1848 or something like that, and they don't want to go beyond that. And that's the benefit of our church. We have prophets to interpret things for us and give us updated revelation that's applicable to what is happening in the world right now. On top of that, the Lord works line upon line, precept upon precept, so the latest and best understanding of scriptures, of prophecy, is going to be had by the most recent president of the church, right? So I'm just going to highlight this here because that's really good. The Lord has also given a special mantle to the apostles, and the significance of their words is pointed out in section 1, verse 14, the Lord's preface to the Doctrine and Covenants, where he says that those who will not give heed to the words of the prophets and apostles shall be cut off from among the people. End quote. The writing from other general authorities should be given consideration also. While the gospel includes the more crucial saving truths contained within theology, it also includes truth in other branches of learning. The Lord encouraged the early missionaries in the 88th section of the Doctrine and Covenants, verse 79, to be instructed more perfectly in, quote, things both in heaven and in earth, and under the earth, things which have been, things which are, things which must shortly come to pass, things which are at home, things which are abroad, the wars and the perplexities of the nations, which I've always, whenever I read this, the perplexities of nations, I think about secret combinations, because a lot of times that's what makes things really complex and perplex. And the judgments which are on the land, and a knowledge also of countries and of the kingdoms, or end of kingdoms, end quote. Today, with the abundance of books available, it is the mark of a truly educated man to know what not to read. Quote, of making many books there is no end. That's in Ecclesiastes 12:12. Feed only on the best. As John Wesley's mother counseled him, quote, avoid whatever weakens your reason, impairs the tenderness of your conscience, obscures your sense of God, takes off your relish for spiritual things, increases the authority of the body over the mind. And now, we have the internet, right? And there's way, way too many people that are going for exactly this. Things that obscure your sense of God, weakens you, feeds into your bodily passions. Yeah, President Nelson has said that it's our spiritual duty. We have a spiritual duty to be educated. And I don't think that that's just college education. Again, I think that is the ideal for the majority of people. I think it's important to go to college and get a degree. I really do. If you're someone that doesn't take that route, which is me, I only got like halfway through, then I switched to another program, got my license, and now I'm not even using that license But that doesn't like relieve me from the responsibility of educating myself. And that's what I do, and that's what we should all do. It doesn't matter. When it comes down to it, college doesn't matter. You still have. It's not like, oh, I didn't go to college, I'm just screwed. No, you still need to learn, and you need to fill in the gaps of your knowledge. Read books, watch YouTube. YouTube has lots of really good educational things on there. You have to like know what's good, and I think everybody pretty much does. Um, but right now, we have so much access to so much information in so many different ways. There's really not an excuse for not learning and not educating yourself. And then on top of that, there's all these apps and stuff that are out to help you. Um, I know it sounds kind of silly, but there's like these things that you can do to help keep your mind sharp. And I don't want to sound like those stupid those stupid commercials for different apps, but it's actually true. There's different there's different things that can work different parts of your mind. You have like those little apps that where it gives you a scrambling of letters, and you see how many words you can find that you can make out of those letters. It actually is good for you. And then I've been talking about Duolingo, and you don't have to do Duolingo, but it's an app that can help teach you a language. You're gonna have to probably do more than just Duolingo, but it can really help you learn the basics, and I think it can help you actually get pretty far, because I decided to do the Spanish one to brush up on my Spanish. And as I've like gone to these higher levels, I'm like, wow, it can actually bring you all the way this far. Of course, again, you still have to like speak it with people, and it helps to write it down. It helps to listen to it and immerse yourself. But this is another way that you can learn, right? Um, so it's important that we don't let our minds atrophy. We should not let our minds atrophy. So, okay, that's enough about that. The fact that a book is old does not necessarily make it of value. The fact that an author wrote one good work does not necessarily mean that all of his books are worthy of your time. Do not make your mind a dumping ground for other people's garbage. It is harder to purge the mind of rotten reading than to purge the body of rotten food, and it is more damaging to the soul. Most novels and pulp magazines are filled with a lot of rubbish, and most TV and a lot of radio programs are a waste of time, if not corrupters of morals or distorters of truth. The less newspapers have to say of value and of truth, the more pages they seem to take to say it. Usually a few minutes is more than sufficient to read a paper. One must select wisely a source of news. Otherwise, it would be better to be uninformed than okay, there's words I want to avoid. The subscribers of some mass magazines and newspapers are ever reading, but seldom able to come to a knowledge of the truth in the areas of most vital concern. Yeah, for sure. I agree. As we approach the showdown, it'll be increasingly valuable to have vocational skills, to be able to use our hands. The most essential temporal skills and knowledge are to be able to provide food, clothing, and shelter. Increasingly, the Lord, through his servants, is trying to get us closer to the soil by raising our own produce. And yeah, I'll second that. I mean, that's what I'm doing now. I have a little family homestead, and we're able to raise cattle, have chickens, and we're still trying to figure out this gardening thing, but we're doing it. But even if you don't have a homestead, you can still do this. Obviously, if you have a little bit of land, if you live in even if you live in an apartment, there's ways that you can do it. You can do raised beds, and anyway. Okay, let us summarize. The most vital knowledge you can learn is the saving truths of the gospel, the truths that will make the difference in your eternal welfare. The most vital words that you can read are are those from the presidents of the church, particularly the living prophet, and those of the apostles and prophets. God encourages learning in many areas, and vocational skills will have increasing importance. Uh, there is much there is much reading material that is available that is either time wasting or corrupting. The best yardstick to use in discerning the worth of true knowledge and learning is to go first and foremost to the words of the Lord's prophets. Okay, here's the next one. Jesus increased in stature. There is no question that health of the body affects the spirit, or the Lord would never have revealed the word of wisdom. God has never given any temporal commandments. That which affects your stature affects your soul. There are at least four basic areas which make the difference in your health, in your growing in stature. First, righteousness. Sin debilitates. It affects not only the soul, but the body. The scriptures are replete with examples of the physical power that can attend the righteous. On the other hand, unrepented sin can diffuse energy and lead to both mental and physical sickness. Disease, fevers, and unexpected deaths are some of the things that have been directly related to disobedience. Jesus healed a man of a physical malady, and then told him in John chapter 5 verse 14 to sin no more, lest a worse thing come unto thee. Galahad said that his strength was as the strength of 10 because he was pure, his heart was pure. Second, food. To a great extent, we are physically what we eat. Most of us are acquainted with some of the prohibitions, such as no tea, coffee, tobacco, or alcohol. Uh, what need additional what need additional emphasis are the positive aspects, the need for vegetables, fruits, and grains, particularly wheat. In most cases, the closer these can be when eaten to their natural state without over refinement and processing, the healthier we will be. Yeah, and I just eating things fresh from the garden for any of you who have those or have done it before, you can tell the difference. You can tell the difference by tasting it. It tastes and goes down. It feels healthier as you eat it. Try and produce your own food as much as you can. To a significant degree, we are an overfed and undernourished nation, digging an early grave with our teeth and lacking the energy that could be ours because we overindulge in junk foods. I'm grateful to know that on this campus you can get apples from vending machines. You can get apples from vending machines that you have in your student center, a fine salad bar, and that you produce an excellent loaf of natural whole grain bread. Keep it up and keep progressing in that direction. We need a generation of young people who, as Daniel, eat in a more healthy manner than to fare on the king's meat, and whose countenances show it. Third, exercise. The body needs the toning up that comes from exercise. Walking in the fresh air can be exhilarating and refreshing. Properly directed running can have some beneficial effects. Simple sit-ups or sporting activity can be helpful. Fourth, sleep. Adequate early rest is best. In the Doctrine and Covenants, section 88, verse 124. Man, he keeps quoting out of section 88. It's the second coming section. The Lord commands, quote, "Cease to sleep longer than is needful. Retire to thy bed early, that ye may not be weary. Arise early, that your bodies and your minds may be invigorated." There are too many enticements to late evening activities. Not only can this weary the body, but a wearied body may be more susceptible to improper activities in the darkness and lateness of the night. Early to bed and early to rise is still good counsel, and a brief nap during the day can be recuperative. And you have to wonder, you know, because for a long time, not so much anymore, I don't think, but when I was growing up in the 80s, 90s, um, late night TV was a huge thing, and I know it was before that time too. Um, you have to wonder about that, and that's what they title their shows, the late night show and stuff like that. It's almost like they know that it's not good for you to stay up late, and they're trying to help you um, not be healthy. Exercise, yeah, we've got to do it, you guys. All of it, we all have to do it. It's not good to have a sedentary lifestyle, meaning that you don't move around very much. You're just always at a desk, or you're sitting on the couch, or you're laying down. It's not good. It's not good at all. And I think what you got to do is you got to just work. You got to find what works for you, because you shouldn't. I don't think you should make exercising something that you dread. Um, so for me, for example, I dread doing exercise just by myself. Like, whether it's inside, inside is better, but doing it outside, I cannot do that. I hate it. I hate the quietness. I hate. I don't know how to describe it, but for me, going to a gym is the best. I feel so much more comfortable at the gym, and you know, when I was in the army, so I lost all my, I lost a lot of weight, joined the army, and then I lost even more weight. And then I was doing pretty good once I got to my unit. But then toward the end, I started to gain weight again. And I had to talk to the platoon sergeant because I didn't pass height and weight. And he was like, all you really need to do is just, go exercise, go to the gym, and just do like a half hour a day. That's like really all you got to do. And it turned out that he was right. Now, I did find a formula that works for me, and my formula for losing weight, and it works like a charm. And this may not work for everybody, but for me, all I have to do is all I have to do is burn 300 calories per session. And then, so usually I'll do like treadmill, bike, elliptical, and then there's like a rowing machine. So I'll just like do a mixture of those kind of things, just whatever I feel like for that day. And then after that, I do just maybe a couple weight machines, and that's it. And I've been losing weight, and that's how I lost weight in the army and got back down to what I needed to be. But the point is, you got to just like do what you enjoy, because there's not just like one right way to exercise. There's many different types of exercise. There's hiking, there's running, there's machines, there's all sorts of things. And there's no end to like the YouTube world of exercise. You find a channel that you like, and then you do their exercises. So yeah, I think it's really important, because our bodies are temples, and we need to make sure that, again, that the spirit can be there. The spirit doesn't want to come to a temple that has potato chips, running out of it, and is just like not kept very well. I think it's really important, especially now. We've read that it helps you receive revelation if you keep your body in shape. Jesus increased in favor with God. I'm probably going to skip that. Increased in favor. Okay. Increased in favor with man. I'm going to skip that too, just because the video is getting kind of long. I want to read this last part though. So this is interesting. My beloved brothers and sisters, quote, Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. And so can you. You are a royal generation. The heavenly grandstands, okay, so now we're talking about sports again and baseball. The heavenly grandstands are cheering you on. We are fast coming to the close of this game. The opposition is real and is scoring. But we have scored, we are scoring, and we will score into the future. The Lord is our coach and manager. His team will win, and we can be a valiant part of it if we so desire. Rise up, O youth of Zion. Oh, and President Nelson has said that too. Rise up. You hardly realize the great divine potential that lies within you. May you all follow your leader, Jesus Christ, and increase mentally, physically, spiritually, and socially. I pray for all of you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay, so there you have it. Thank you, Jenica Weeks, for sending this to me, because I think it's fascinating. I think it's interesting if this kind of inspired President Nelson, and even if he didn't know about this talk, it's just interesting that they're both on the same page with this baseball analogy. But to me, again, it is pretty clear we're at a point now in this dispensation where they're identifying generations that are going to be here to meet Christ. And it seems like if you're a baby boomer or younger, you're probably good to go. And I personally wouldn't be surprised if President Nelson is around to see it. I almost wonder if he's part of the plan, because with how old he is. I mean, today is September 1st. His birthday. Okay, when is President Nelson's birthday? I gotta specify. Russell M. Nelson's birthday. Calvin Coolidge. I'm glad. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. His birthday is on the 9th. So, oh wow. So he's going to turn 98. Okay, so getting back to my point, I really wouldn't be surprised if it was part of the plan for him to be the prophet at the time of the second coming, because we all know that when you turn 100, you go from, like, once you're in the millennium, you go from you're already in a translated a translated state in mortality, and then in the twinkling of an eye, you go from translated mortality to resurrected immortality. And it would be such a great way to kick things off. It's like if one of the first people that we saw do that was the prophet at that time. That's why I feel like there's potential that he might be the prophet of the second coming. So we'll just have to wait and see. Now, if he is, so let's say that scenario plays out, then he turns 98 this year, so we would have like 2 more years to go. We would only have 2 more years to go until he goes from translated to resurrected, if that's Heavenly Father's plan for him. So that would take us to September of 2024. And again, that's the year of the eclipse. That's the year that the Salt Lake Temple was supposed to be done by. So we'll just have to see what happens. All right. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it. And if you'd like to have more content, there's the members only portion of my channel. So feel free to join as a member. And I'll talk to you guys later.